Hello, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or, of course, if you're watching on our growing YouTube channel, that is Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And Andrew here for another episode of the Preview Podcast, with Carolina set to face number 10 and undefeated Wake Forest in Chapel Hill, Kenan Stadium. 12 p.m. kickoff this Saturday. That game will be on ABC. And don't forget, guys, it is a non-conference game. It is kind of weird saying that, and it's not the first time this has happened between these two schools in recent memory, but it is a non-conference game. It is a non-ACC game for these two opponents. Going to be just kind of previewing Wake Forest, what Carolina needs to do on both sides of the ball to have a chance to beat the Demon Deacons and some other things as we dive into this podcast. But, AJ, I want to start with talking a little bit more about the defense for Carolina in particular. The reason for it is, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well, you're going up against, in Wake Forest, one of the top offenses in the country, the best offense that Carolina has faced this season, bar none. I mean, number 9 overall offense in the country, Wake Forest, 495.4 yards per game, outscored their opponents 347 to 191 on the season. This is a extremely prolific Wake Forest offense that has just absolutely torched everybody they've come up for through this season. On the flip side for Carolina, this is a defense that's really struggled for consistency this season, coming off a performance in which they let up 44 points at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a good team, but we've talked about that in our 3 things and some other things we've wrote it. There was just a poor performance from the defense again, where they would, let up over 500 yards. So going into this game, I think defense has been the talking point for a majority of the season. I think it's even bigger of a talking point now with how poorly Carolina's performed in some of their recent games on that side of the ball. And like I said, for a majority of the season. So it's interesting, man. I mean, I don't know what to expect on Saturday. I think a very high scoring game is what everybody should bet on happening based on what we've seen from these two teams this season. But AJ, how much of a concern is it for Carolina and for this team going into it when you look at how badly this defense and how inconsistent this defense has played at times, going up, like I said, against one of the most prolific and consistent offenses in college football this season?
Yeah, and Virginia's offense actually is rated a little bit higher with total yards per game, but I think Wake's a better offense. They're more balanced, and Wake has played with a lead most of the time, and Virginia's playing from behind and Brennan Armstrong checking and around, that kind of thing. I think Virginia's really good on offense, but I think Wake is just better.
I think so too, yeah.
And I think Wake, with some of the deception that Wake does, will cause even more problems for Carolina. And it wasn't like Virginia didn't have a field day with the Tar Heels. So I think this is an enormous challenge. But the issue with the defense, I think, is something that you're right, we need to dive into first, because it's part and parcel to any advancement you do for any Carolina game moving forward, even Wofford, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think that one of the things I wanted to talk about was some of the feedback we've gotten from the interviews on Monday with Mac and with Jay Bateman, that a couple of us in the media were asking questions about the defense. And I should explain to people who maybe they watch and they listen with an emotional tint, and they need to understand the purpose behind asking a question to Mac and to Bateman. What has improved defensively since the start of the season? That's not a soft question. That's not an irrelevant question, because you want to find out. The defense has struggled so much. I want them to tell us what's the first thing out of their mouths that has improved when you ask that question. And for Mac, he said, well, they gave consistent effort in the Notre Dame game. I thought that was a surprise. And I think that's a little concerning, because it suggests, I'm not saying that's what he was saying, but it suggests that maybe there were times previously the defense didn't give maximum effort. And I think part of it might be the feeling sorry for themselves, the letting adversity get to them. And I think sometimes when you do that, it slows your verve. It minimizes your spirit on the field when you're overthinking. So I think that's probably what he was talking about. It didn't mean like, I don't care on this play. Their minds were clear, and so they gave maximum effort, consistent effort at all times, because they didn't get as cloudy upstairs,
overthinking,
holding them back some. That's my take on what he was probably saying. And then I asked Jay Bateman, and he paused. He didn't have something immediately to come up with, and then he went to defensive line technique. The reason I ask those questions is because you want the people, the guy who runs the program and the guy who runs the defense, tell you what's the first thing that they say. Because we don't know. We're not there. I don't know football like they do.
No.
The fans that are watching and listening to this right now don't know football like they do. So what do the experts, what do the curators of this program have to say? And that's what they said. And then I followed up both of them with, okay, what's your biggest concern? Mm-hmm. And neither one of them went too deep into the concerns. It's pretty obvious that there are a lot of them. We all do see them. You don't have to be a football savant to understand a lot of the issues that they have. So that's why the question was asked. And that's why Greg Barnes also asked Mac about, are you satisfied with the job that the defensive coaches are doing? It's all relative to where things are. I don't think it's a news flash to anybody that people are calling for Jay Bateman's head. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the trajectory of the defense, not just this season, but from when he showed up, it has gone the opposite direction from what people thought. Let's remember in 2019, the defense finished ranked number 49 in total defense, allowing 373 yards a game. They were number 44 in points, allowing just under 24. Last year, they were number 58 in total defense. They were number 65 in scoring defense, just under 30 points a game. Right now, they're number 78 in total defense, although they're actually allowing 4 fewer yards a game than last year right now. That might change this weekend.
Yeah.
That might get shattered this weekend.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And they're allowing almost 31 points a game. So, and they're doing this. The thing that is, and I wrote a piece about this again and I posted Monday night, but what has to be so maddening for Mac and for the staff, and certainly for all you guys that are watching that have poured so much emotion into Carolina football, is that the defense has gone through stretches where it looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. They're on point. They win the battles at the line of scrimmage. They take care of all their responsibilities and they get teams off the field quickly. They've had a phenomenal first half at Georgia Tech. They were very good in Blacksburg. Mm-hmm. They were pretty good against Georgia State, who missed some opportunities. And by the way, the Georgia State quarterback just went into the portal, the guy who played that game.
Oh, wow. Didn't see that.
They were really good in the first half against Georgia Tech. They were outstanding against Duke after the first series or so. And then in the first quarter, fourth quarter against FSU, and then the first half against Miami. They were fantastic. What's so maddening is that when it flips, when it goes off the rails, I mean, they stay in a heaped mass of steel in a ditch somewhere off the rails. And it takes forever to get themselves back up. And they usually don't, because usually they play well early. Teams make adjustments, they find ways to attack, and then Carolina's helpless. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, what has to frustrate and concern Mac and everybody in the program, and certainly Jay Bateman.
Definitely.
The in-game adjustments we saw in Blacksburg and that they talked about and we asked Jay Bateman about, they have not occurred a whole lot lately. Mm-hmm. But Notre Dame, with 3 minutes and 22 seconds left in the first half, the game was tied 10-10. And from that point on, Notre Dame ran 43 plays, gained 408 yards, and scored 34 points. Mm-hmm. That is a common storyline from Miami, from Florida State, from Georgia Tech. And let's not forget Virginia had 366 yards and 28 points in the first half. And that night, Brennan Armstrong threw for 73 more yards than anybody has ever thrown against North Carolina. There is a litany of examples of why the defense is underperforming. Statistics do not lie. Our eyes do not lie. It is a massive problem. And it's something that they're fully aware of. They're not ignoring it. Would people take some of Mac's words that he said Monday and say, well, Mac thinks everything's fine? Well, no, he didn't say that. He said they're good coaches. Good coaches can have tough times, just like good players can have tough times. You know, my favorite baseball player of all time, Eddie Murray, is in the Hall of Fame, and he hit 247 one year with the Dodgers. That didn't make him a bad player. It was just a bad year.
Yeah.
So, but I do think the trend that we're seeing, and they're 33 games into this regime and into this defensive scheme, and we have not yet seen it consistently against quality competition perform the way people thought it was going to perform. And I think that is the biggest red flag of all.
Yeah. And when you're, like we've talked about, and we're going to dive into a little bit deeper here shortly, when you're going up against one of the most prolific offenses in the country this season, when you've seen what you've seen from Carolina, not only throughout the season, what you just saw from them against Notre Dame and even Miami before that, before the bye week, it doesn't fill you, if you are a Carolina fan going into this game, it shouldn't fill you with a lot of optimism that Carolina is going to have any chance of stopping Wake Forest based on what we've seen, because we've seen some better defenses than Carolina really struggle to do so. So let me ask you this about the defense real quick before we dive into it. How much – we talked about it a little bit off camera. How much has miscommunication been an issue? Because I know we've talked to Gemmel, we've talked to a lot of the guys. It was very evident to me and to you on Saturday against Notre Dame that there is just a handful of plays before snap that Jeremiah Gemmel, for instance, has his head on a swivel talking to experienced guys that have played in this defense for years that are out of position, don't know where they need to be. How much of that is an issue and a concern? Because you think at that point in the season and year 3 in this regime, that wouldn't be an issue with some of these experienced guys in particular.
Well, they tell us it is. And again, I don't know this stuff like the staff does, and I'm not going to pretend to know it and apologize. I've got something in my eye right now, but we have to go by what they say. And I've told you this, like I met you, 4 years ago, and I've been telling you this for 4 years, that, the teams that we cover, they determine what we write. They determine what we say. They determine what we write. And they craft our perspective based on what they do on the courts and on the fields.
Yes, very true.
And then when we talk to them afterward, they kind of help that by answering the questions that we ask. So we've heard miscommunication for 2 months, from not just Jeremiah, from Mac and Bateman. Even when I asked Jay Bateman what's gotten better after he said defensive line technique, he did say communication's been a little better in recent weeks. And Jeremiah said that after Notre Dame. Jeremiah went a step further and actually said, the guys need to play their own responsibilities, need to be one of 11. And when guys start cheating, so to speak, and when I say cheating, I mean, that's meant to say trying to compensate for other guys not doing their jobs, then everything just blows up.
Yeah.
You've got to win your battle. Handle your responsibility, win your battle, trust your teammates, and that's a good defense. When the trust starts to evaporate, then everything goes to hell. And that's what we saw. In Notre Dame, I'm going to reiterate this. Number 150 in the nation in rushing going into that game, averaging 107 yards a game. They ran for 293. Bateman made a big point of saying, well, outside of the Kieran Williams 91-yard run, the defense is pretty good. No, it was still at 202 yards allowed.
Yeah, it's not great.
It was still 5.5 yards a pop. I mean, Notre Dame averaged 7 yards a run the other night. And they had 3 yards rushing against Wisconsin. They had 64 against, I think it was Toledo or something. Not Toledo, it was but Florida State or something like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
they did play Toledo too, but they did struggle.
They played Toledo and they averaged 3 yards a rush against Toledo.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
so,
it's pretty. Yeah.
So you look at Wake Forest. Wake Forest is number 46 in the nation running the football. They're number 5 in the nation, I think it is, in passing. Number 14 in passing. Number 5 in scoring offense. So number 9 in total offense. They're number 5 in third down conversions. They're number 14 in red zone offense.
Just efficient.
I mean, they've had 12 passing touchdowns of 30 or more yards. They've had 5 of 50 or more yards. Those are, if Notre Dame could get chunk plays, Jack Cohn, I'm going off here, but Jack Cohn, Notre Dame's quarterback, entered the game. This is an actual stat, guys. With minus 88 yards rushing on the season. When the game ended, he was at minus 60. So that means he went plus 20. He had a 21-yard touchdown run.
Jeez, negative 80. Jeez.
One of the guys in the Notre Dame media said that Jack Cohn doesn't score 21-yard touchdown runs in dummy offense with no defense the day before a game.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I'm not trying to make fun of Carolina's defense. I'm not trying to make light of it, but it's an alarming situation. I know it's being dealt with. Fans need to understand that Mac is not going to fire somebody in the middle of the season. He's not going to embarrass Jay Bateman or any other coach. It's not his style. Mac is a gentleman. He's diplomatic. And what would they do if they did get rid of Jay Bateman right now? Are they going to install a whole new defense in November?
Yeah, what's the point?
That's not happening. You could play more base, but they have simplified what he does some. I do think the communication, as you asked, is an issue. And I think one of the problems is when you're cross-training, moving guys around so much, Jaquarius Conley spent all August learning how to communicate at the back of the defense. And now he's at nickel. Very quickly was shifted to nickel. Guys moving around a little bit. So it's just not working out very well.
Yeah.
And they got to get things fixed quickly or that will have to be dealt with at some point.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here and say such and such needs to be terminated because I don't know. And I've been asked that a lot too. The media, we don't know the inner workings of the program. We don't know, all of Jay Bateman's responsibilities or Tim Cross's responsibilities or Dre Bly's responsibilities. We don't know the chain of communication, how things are done there. We don't know what's mandated in that room. I've never been a big believer that media should call for an assistant coach's head because we don't know the inner workings.
Yeah.
It's different with a head coach because the head coach is responsible for everything. So we know that the head coach is responsible for it because it's literally everything under the umbrella. Therefore, head coach is fair game. I've never thought that an assistant coach is fair game to call for anything like that. So I'm not going to. And Mac will make the best decision for this program. So if that decision has to be made at the end of the year, if he has to cut ties, he'll do that. If he feels like and believes very strongly that a few tweaks here and there, and with the most talented kids in the defense getting a little bit older, because just remember, most of the talented kids in defense either just turned 20 or not even yet 20 years old. So by the simple fact that the Jimmies and Joes are going to get older, they should get better.
Yeah.
We'll know. We'll know by some point in January what Mac thinks. And he'll tell us. He's pretty transparent. He'll let us know what he thinks.
No, most
regardless of whatever that decision is. Bottom line is they have an enormous task this weekend, Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
And it's their most challenging one. And if they struggle against a very mediocre offense like Notre Dame, having 2 weeks to prepare, and they did prepare some during the bye week, not just this, but you got to face Sam Hartman, and then 5 days later got to go up and face Kenny Pickett. This has the potential to be a very rough 5 days for the UNC football program.
Definitely. Particularly
6 days, I guess.
Yeah. Particularly on the defensive side of the ball with you talk about two of the best quarterbacks in the country in Pickett and Hartman. So let's dive into Wake Forest offensively a little bit more. I know we've talked about them a lot, but let's just dive into them a little bit more, throw some stats. You mentioned Sam Hartman throwing for 2,475 yards on the season, 22 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions. It's unbelievable stats. Number 4 in the country in yards per pass attempt with 9.9 and number 9 in the country in total passing yards, like I said, with 2,475. So just a really, really amazing season from Sam Hartman. Guy's been around the program for a while and has led Wake Forest to, his best ever start in program history, I believe, at 8-0. So big kudos to him and what he's been able to do. He's been fantastic. Christian Beal-Smith at the running back position, 98 attempts this year, 492 yards. As you can see, Wake Forest is a pretty heavy throwing team, but they do have a guy in Beal-Smith who is talented and can run the ball and tote it when he needs to. Wide receiver position, 2 guys that really stand out. Jaquari Robinson, probably butchering that first name. Apologies if I did. 43 catches, 737 yards on the season. You also got A.T. Perry, 36 catches, 716 yards. So you got 2 guys with over 700 receiving yards on the year. That's impressive and kind of what you'd expect when you think of a Wake Forest team that is a pretty heavy passing team and has a lot of talent in a guy like Sam Hartman. So I know we've talked about a lot of the defensive struggles this season and what they've kind of done in recent weeks and just some of the inconsistencies they've had as a whole. But I mean, like I always kind of like to pose in the preview podcast that we do with any opponent, what does Carolina need to do and have to do, I should say, on the defensive side of the ball to have any chance of stopping, one of the most prolific offenses, not only in the ACC, but in the country as a whole?
You got to be really good on first down. Wake is at they convert 51.2% of their third downs. So make that a little more challenging.
Yep.
Put them in third down situations, make them have to convert. And Wake will go for it on fourth down a lot too. So it's like you have 2 of those situations back to back. If you get a stop on third down, you may have to get a stop on fourth down as well. This is a big challenge, but it begins. Football is won and lost at line of scrimmage. I don't care how many offenses come and go.
Yeah.
The older guys watching this remember the wishbone.
Mhm.
All right, then they remember, the old West Coast offense and all that kind of crap that came along. And, offense is kind of morph into other things, but
Mm.
the bottom line is football was won at the line of scrimmage in 1960. It was won at the line of scrimmage in 1980,
Yep.
and it's won at the line of scrimmage in 2021, regardless of the offensive schemes. And I still have something in my eye, which is good. I can't see you as well, Jacob. So they have to be good on first down, and that also gives them confidence in that series. Let's face it. This defense, they're human beings, man. Human nature is when things are going well, you start to lose a little bit of confidence. Jeremiah said, guys got to play 1 of 11 because they're losing faith in some of their teammates on the field. So if you do well on first down, so many other positive things could follow. And that's a big task because Wake is excellent on first down.
Yep.
Wake is excellent on second down. Wake is excellent on third down and fourth down. Pick your poison. I would say try to not get beat on the big plays, because in the last 6 games when Wake really started hitting on the big plays, and let's also remember, with all the offensive production, Wake only has 2 non-offensive TDs. So it's not like this is a team that's running back interceptions every week. When Jim Grobe took them to the Orange Bowl in 2006, I covered a lot of their games, and that club was scoring touchdowns, non-offensive touchdowns all over the place. They were good on offense, but they weren't great.
Yeah.
This club, they have a kickoff return and they have an interception return. The interception return, I think, was at Army. The kickoff return, I believe, was against Old Dominion or Norfolk State. That's it. The rest of them are offensive points, man. And they are scoring from anywhere in the field. They have 4 touchdown passes of 60 or more yards. And they have a lot of runs. They have a lot of big scoring runs. They had a 46-yard scoring run here a couple of games ago. So, these guys know how to get the ball in the end zone. They could score in tight situations, tight yardage situations. They could score on explosives. They're just a handful for this defense. I think for North Carolina to win this game, Jacob, they're going to have to just big time outscore them. It's going to be a shootout, and the Tar Heels may have to score in the 50s to win this game. I mean, I've covered some really high scoring games. I did that Georgia Tech Carolina game, 68-50. And 2 weeks later, I did NC State at Clemson. It was like 63-47 or something crazy like that. And I remember asking somebody who were the football media relations people at NC State, what did I do to deserve this? A lot of people think that's fun. I think it's treacherous.
Yeah.
Bad. It's horrible. I want to see 24-21 every once in a while.
Give me some low scoring games every once in a while.
So this weekend's going to, if you're on the kickoff team and kickoff receiving team, you're going to earn your letter this weekend.
Most definitely. Yeah, I'm expecting a high scoring, and I got to change my staff pick, which we'll hit on a little bit later. I
haven't seen it yet. I haven't looked at anybody.
I'm going to send you another one. I'm going to keep the outcome that I think is going to happen, for which I'll talk about later. But I got to go up on the points. I was actually looking at it a few minutes ago. It's like on a tab on my thing, and I'm like, I really put that low scoring? I'm crazy. I got to change.
I honestly have a hard time believing Wake will at least get into the 40s. Let's face it. Georgia, in 4 of the last 5 games, Georgia Tech 45, Duke had 7. And then, let's see, Florida State 35, Miami 42, and Notre Dame 44. So it's 3 of the last 5. They've given up 40 or more. 4 of the last 6, Virginia had 39.
It's going to be a high-scoring game. So if you like efficient offenses, it'd be a good game to come out and watch. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, college football is crazy, and Mac talks about that a lot, about how 1 week, he said 1 week doesn't really connect to the next. But I think, unfortunately, with this team, we're seeing that the defensive derailments are connected, and that they stick around for a while. I have a hard time believing that this is going to be, 23-17.
No chance.
With the 2 Sams going at it.
No chance.
Yeah. Sam Howell will become the all-time all-purpose yardage leader by some point early in the second quarter. I think Carolina's going to move the ball. Wake's defense is not very good. People talk about, is Wake a CFP team? I think offensively, I think strategically, I think in terms of efficiency and not beating themselves, they're a CFP type team in a 2021 year where only Georgia really, really pops. But at the same time, that defense is not a CFP defense.
No.
So Carolina should move the ball. So Wake is a team that didn't beat itself. I think, what are they in turnover margin? They're like 4th in the country or something in turnover margin.
Fantastic.
So if Carolina could force some turnovers and then just Sam Howell go crazy and Ty Chandler go crazy, that's how they win this game. They have to force turnovers, and they have to maybe do something on special teams that flips the field, because Wake's going to score a high percentage at the time. But if Carolina can eliminate those, a couple of those times by getting picks, by blocking a punt or something, like not just tipping the thing, but blocking it and getting the ball close to the end zone scoring situation. That's how Carolina wins this game.
Definitely. Let's flip to the defensive side of the ball for Wake Forest. We've talked a little about it a little bit, but I'll throw off some stats. Number 100 overall defense in total defense in the country, allowing 421.5 yards per game. In comparison, I believe Carolina sits at like 76, allowing a little over, I think around 396 yards per game, something in that range. So, defensively, Carolina at times has been better, which is a Wake Forest defense that does allow points. And if you go look at some of their results this year, you'll see that. I mean, they've had some teams in the ACC that aren't great put up some points on them. So they've just happened to outscore them pretty easily, which is why they're, sitting at 8-0 right now. But diving in some individuals, you got linebacker Ryan Smenda Jr., 44 tackles on the season. He's tied with defensive back Luke Masterson. He has 44 tackles as well. They both lead the team in tackles on the year. And you've also got the sack leader, Rondell Bothroyd, 5 sacks on the year at that defensive line position. So you got guys that can make plays out there and guys that have shown they can do it. But when you look at this Wake Forest defense statistically, and you look at, like I said, who they've played and some of their scores this year, this is a defense that Carolina, in my opinion, based on what we've seen against Miami and Notre Dame in the last couple of weeks alone, should have no problem scoring on this Wake Forest offense, particularly at home in Keaton Stadium. Will they? We'll have to see what happens. But statistically and on paper, this is a defense that, no doubt in my mind, Carolina can certainly get after and put some points up. What do you think Carolina has to do offensively to, like we've talked about, probably keep up with Wake Forest and outscore Wake Forest in this game and have a chance to win?
Well, before I answer that, the one interesting thing is if you look at common opponents, they both had similar defensive performances against Duke, which is really a bad football team.
Yeah.
Wake was a lot better at stopping UVA than Carolina, and they did that up in Charlottesville. Mm-hmm. And Wake did a much better job against Florida State than Carolina did. So, I wonder exactly where Wake's defense is. I did a 5 questions thing with Connor O'Neill, fantastic sports writer, runs Wake Forest site now on our network. I haven't gotten him back yet by the time we're recording this, but I kind of asked him a question along those lines about the defense. And statistically, Carolina should and probably will. I mean, Carolina could move the ball pretty much against anybody, except in the opener they were bad. But I think that was an aberration. That was not the norm. So the Tar Heels should move the ball, but I just wonder, where the Wake Forest defense is. Statistically, it's not very good. We were making a joke a few minutes ago about how Carolina should score a ton of points, might have to score in the 50s to win, and might be able to do that. We don't really know. I think Wake Forest strikes me as the kind of team that sometimes will do whatever it has to do. Like if it got put in a situation where it's a slugfest, a defensive slugfest, I wonder if the Deeks defense could rise up and handle that. I mean, Dave Kloss's teams are so well coached that they might situationally be really good at stuff when they have to be really good. They just haven't had to a whole lot because their offense has been so good. Now, they have had some close games, and they found ways to win them. They went up and won an overtime game at Syracuse, which is playing better than people thought that they would. They found a way to beat Louisville. They've had some other games where they have done whatever was necessary to win. Even the Army game, Army was scoring at will on them. So what did Wake do? They scored at will even more. And the defense made a play. The defense made a play that was a difference in that game. It was 70-56, and they had an interception return for a touchdown. If that doesn't occur, then maybe you're talking 63-63 because they weren't really stopping Army. Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see. If Wake is an ACC champion, then and the offense is a little bit off Saturday, maybe the defense is good enough to compensate for it. Yeah. I think Carolina's going to move the ball. I love what I saw from the Tar Heels offense Saturday night. Mm-hmm. The people who have been jumping on Longo need to chill out a little bit because this offense has gotten better. The offensive line has improved. I think the heat's a little bit off Stacey Searles from the social media sphere a little bit right now. Sam was really good the other night. I thought that was just a warrior-like performance. They hit 8. They had 8 receptions by outside receivers. Yep. It's amazing when some of those guys get open. Sam's going to see him. He's going to throw the ball. They catch it and just opens up the whole offense.
It changes it.
They hadn't had 500 yards in a game since, I believe, Virginia. Maybe was it Virginia?
I think you're right. Yes.
Yeah. So they look kind of normal. and they have a chance to look normal this weekend. If they are, and the defense figures out a way, and special teams figure out a way to make a few things happen that flip the script a little bit, that's how they win this game. I think the offense will be fine. I think they're going to run the ball well. I think Ty Chandler has a chance to have a big game. And Sam did his 300-100 thing the other night in South Bend, which
pretty impressive.
Talked about a lot in September. It's kind of gone away, but that's pretty impressive. He did it against Georgia State, and people thought, it's just Georgia State. They did it against UVA, but now look at UVA. They had terrible defense.
Yeah, terrible
defense. But he did it in South Bend. That's high-level stuff. So if Sam is at that level again Saturday, and that kind of competitor, they have to be that way to have a chance.
Yeah, he's definitely got to show out and play up to his caliber and his potential, which we've seen him do countless times in his few years at Carolina. So I'm interested to see how things go down, which is a perfect segue into the last thing we're going to hit on, which we always do in our preview podcast, is prediction time, as I like to call it. I've already put a disclaimer out there saying I'm changing my staff picks. AJ hasn't seen it yet. I'm not going to tell the people what I originally predicted. I will say this, though. I put this out on Twitter on Monday, I believe. And I've been saying this to some people behind closed doors. I have a sneaky feeling. I have no reason why. Absolutely no stats or analysis to back it up on this. This is a gut feeling, solely a gut feeling.
Did you know that this is going to go out there broadcast?
100%. I'm ready to be clipped up when Carolina loses by 20 on Saturday and I look like an idiot. I think Carolina, for whatever reason, I've had this feeling for a little bit over a week now. I think Carolina beats Wake Forest. I think it's a close game. I think it's a high-scoring game. I think it's a very close game. I think it's a entertaining one, to say the least. Like I said, I have no idea why I think this will happen, but it's just a feeling I've had. So I'm going to roll with it, and then I'm prepared to be proven wrong on Saturday when it happens. But I think Carolina wins 45-42. I think it's a shootout. I think it's an absolute just defensive what not to do clinic, what not to do on the defensive side of the ball. I think will be that. Because I think you've got an offense that, from what I've seen over the last couple of weeks from Carolina, I've seen some improvements against Miami and Notre Dame particularly. They've had good games this year anyway. I mean, it wasn't like those with only 2 good games they've had. Virginia stands out as well. They've been really good at times. And I think when you look at this Wake Forest defense, there's no reason to believe that Carolina can't do something similar and perform even better than they did up at Notre Dame against a worse statistical defense than Notre Dame was. And I think Wake Forest scores. I think they put up points, and there's no reason to believe they're not. I mean, if you're predicting a, 42-21 Carolina victory, I think that's outrageous. It's going to be close and it's going to be high scoring. That's my gut feeling. Completely prepared to be proven wrong when it does happen, and I'm ready to be clipped up on Twitter and attacked by a Carolina fan base if they lose on Saturday. But that's what I'm going with, AJ. What are you feeling on that?
Well, here, I'll make this prediction. If they win 45-42, one of the things Mac will say very early in his opening statements is, well, we held them under their season average. The season average is 43.4. Yeah. So you're predicting that Carolina holds somebody under their season average.
I'm going out on a limb, man. I'm going out on a limb.
Since the first 2 games, that hadn't happened.
I'm going to put my neck on the line here, AJ.
Duke, I guess, but what was the score of last year's game? Do you remember?
I wish you would not. I could find out.
59-53.
50. Yeah, that's what it was. Yep. High score.
I
knew it was high score, and I couldn't remember the exact.
That was a game when Bateman threw up his hand and said, the heck with it. We got to put the kids in.
Yep. And
Murphy, Conley, Grimes. Conley and Grimes became starters. Murphy started getting a lot more snaps, and it paid off. The defense did better. I don't think that they have those kids to turn to right now because Keyshawn's still very much in the developmental phase. Mm-hmm. And when I asked Jay what the positive was, the first thing he went to is defensive line. So I don't think you're going to see any changes there. I don't think you're going to see power or rah-rah linebacker. I don't think linebacker is that is big an issue as some others do. They do have some issues in the secondary. I think that the issues begin with the miscommunication. It just trickles down and just blows everything up. I'm not going to give a prediction right now. Well, I will, but I don't know. I never do my actual staff picks right up by the time we do these. By the time we record these
changing
previews.
mine, so ignore the email.
I don't think that I'll say what I said about Notre Dame. I thought Carolina was going to go up there and play well and be in position to possibly win. They would compete, and they did. I thought the defense was going to be better. And I'm surprised the offense moved the ball as well as it did. So I was wrong on those fronts, but I was right that they did compete. And they certainly were a few plays here and there away from maybe winning that game.
Yeah.
They were good enough in a lot through 90% of the snaps to perhaps win that game, even with as poorly as the defense played. But in looking at this, nothing has happened through 8 games that leads me to believe that it makes sense to pick Carolina at 4-4 with all of its warts to beat a team that's 8-0. And Wake has warts, but few of them. And the things that Wake is really good at, Wake is outstanding at.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that is – I'm not going to go by a gut. I don't have a gut on this one.
I don't know why.
This one, I have a gut, but I don't have a gut on this one. It's not as big as it used to be, but I just don't think that I can pick Carolina to win this game.
don't blame you.
I agree with you. It's going to be high scoring. It's going to be similar to last year. But Carolina won a 59-53 game last year, and they don't have some key components from that game. And Wake has pretty much everybody back.
Yeah, they're a great team, man.
So, and I'll tell you what, it's going to be fun to see Sam Hartman in person. If he goes off against this defense, people need to start talking about him with the Heisman. And wouldn't that be something? If the Heisman Trophy comes down to a Wake Forest quarterback and a former Wake Forest running back, who, by the way, his offensive line is coached by former UNC offensive line coach Chris. I'll just call him Coach Cap.
Yeah.
Nobody knows his name. They always know him as Coach
Talking
Cap.
about Michigan State for those who.
Yes, talking about Michigan State. The JB Ricks' boys. If you follow JB Ricks on Twitter,
big.
you know everything you ever need to know about Michigan State.
Yeah.
That's a shout out to JB. He's an awesome dude.
Yeah, I like JB a lot too, man. Yeah, no, like I said, I got a gut feeling on it. I've had it for about a week. I have no idea why. There's no logical reason for me to predict this at all. But
which is why it might happen, right?
That's what I'm saying. I'm going to throw it out there. And I put it on Twitter. I said, you know what? I'm ready to be proven wrong. I'm going to throw it on Twitter for the Carolina fans. I'm going to we'll see what happens. If Carolina loses on Saturday, I'm sure I'll have a lot of Wake Forest fans retweeting it. Well, I don't know what kind of fan base they have on Twitter, but, we'll see what happens. But I'm interested, man. I think it's going to be an entertaining game. So if you like high scoring games and you like,
or if high scoring games nauseate you when it's every week and every game, then it may not be that entertaining.
Watch it. Wouldn't it be hilarious if it was like 24-21?
I'm not a big fan of the punt, but I am a big fan of a defense standing up on a 3rd and 2 and getting off the field. Yeah, I like that kind of football. That kind of stuff too. I like when guys tackle with their face masks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
we don't see a lot of that these days. I would like to see more of that. I'd like to see some good old fashioned
tight
slobber knocking football.
Tight, back and forth, tough to score on. I like that kind of football too. I'm not a huge fan.
I remember back in the day when 28-21 was considered a high scoring game. I don't want it to be 14-3 stuff. I like the high scoring games on occasion.
Not every week.
Just not every week. It's like arena football on an actual football field now.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we're going to see this weekend. So the interesting thing will be in a game like that is just like in the Miami game, the whole "be the one" slogan. Jeremiah with the tip, Cedric Gray was right there at the ball. The ball finds good players, as Jay Bateman said. I totally am with that. And if it is a game like that, defense still has to make a play.
Yep.
And sometimes it's just one play the defense makes, and boom, it changes the game.
Yep. Well, I'll leave everybody with this. Carolina is a 2.5 favorite going into this game. I have no idea where they got that from.
Before we had a very interesting conversation in the press box before the game. There was Greg Barnes, Ross Martin, C.L. Brown, Adam Smith, and me, the North Carolina media that were there. And we were talking about the spread being 3.5. And have you seen a team whose weekly spreads are not really in jive with what that team is more than Carolina this season? Well, somebody in Vegas loves Carolina. They were joking.
Carolina fan who's throwing it out. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, they were joking that some multi-billionaires just chucking money on the heels or something like that or however it would move the spread. I don't know much about spread.
Yeah, I'm not a huge betting guy either.
Before I'd gotten to media, I used to dabble in games every once in a while just for fun because my buddies did it. And I was young, and once I got in the media, I don't really pay too much attention to it. But Carolina should not be favored in this game. That's foolish.
Yeah, I don't know where that.
Part of that might be people just don't believe in Wake. People don't believe in Wake, and I understand why. But Wake Forest has had its 2 best coaches in school history back to back.
Yep.
When Jim Caldwell got fired, and Jim Caldwell actually took them to a bowl game. When he got fired, they were the worst power program historically in the country. But what has Wake done since then? Wake's won a conference championship since then, an actual ACC championship. Carolina hadn't since 80. State hadn't since 79. Wow. Duke tied for one in 89.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. And Wake could win one again this year.
I know.
Although the Wake State game is going to be very interesting.
Huge. I'm looking forward to see if State can take care of business, before and after that. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, Brett Friedlander calls it the law of the wolf.
Yeah,
And
I've heard it from a lot. I have a lot of State fans. They say the same
His thing is the law of the wolf will be if 5-6 Carolina rolls into Carter Finley the day after Thanksgiving, and State needs to win the Atlantic, and Carolina beats them.
Yeah,
they go to a bowl. State doesn't win the Atlantic, and the natural order of things remains intact.
I've heard that. I have a lot of friends who are State fans.
I don't think
I've heard that too.
I think this State team is good.
I think they are too. I think
they slip up. Everybody in this league slips up except Wake.
Yeah,
but I can't wait for the State Wake game.
I'm just glad it's not Clemson won the ACC a week ago, like it usually is every year. You know what I mean? When the Atlantic, a week ago wins the Atlantic this year, like it seems to be every year for the last 10 years or so. I'm glad that there's another team that is like a Wake Forest. It's like, okay, they're doing what Clemson usually does and overall in this league and
if
stuff
the
like that.
league is going to be bad, at least be interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
And the league is terrible this year.
Yeah, we were talking about that beforehand. There's not a lot of winning records in the schedule.
There's like 9 teams. There are 9 teams with a 500 record or worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the league stinks.
Not great. Yeah, it's unfortunate to see, but yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. We'll see what happens on Saturday. Like I said, Carolina facing Wake Forest. ABC game will be on ABC, noon kickoff in Chapel Hill this Saturday. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Make sure you guys keep it locked to the YouTube channel here at Tar Heel Illustrated. Make sure you keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com as well for all your coverage leading up to the game, after the game, and basketball season is right around the corner too. So,
and our promo right now too, 30 days free. Sign up right now. No strings attached. You get 30 days free, guys.
Was it code?
So come check us out. 21? Come check us out for a month.
Yep.
Hubert's starting up. We've got lots of recruiting stuff going on. There's still a few more gets that football is going to have, and you can get that inside information by checking out Dina's Dandies and being on our board. And we interact on our board. People have questions for us all the time. We answer everything. So, a lot of people send me stuff through DMs and become a subscriber, sign up for 30 days for free, and I'll answer.
Definitely.
I mean, I got so much to do. I got to show my loyalty toward the people who keep the site afloat, whom we're so appreciative of. But just 30 days for free. Just sign up. No strings attached. Check us out.
Yep. Code Hubert21 to get that as well. You can find that. Go to our Twitter as well, which you can find the link right below. You'll see it blasted all over there, and it'll continue to be blasted for the next 30 days. Trust me on that. So yeah, I've been Jacob Turner. He's been
Andrew Jones. Staff do it. I get on the staff for we're not pushing it.
You got to, man. We got
to. So anybody on the staff watching right now, push the promo.
Calling shot. I've seen a few guys. I've seen Brandon. I've seen Noah. I've done it. I've seen some people do. I think Dean has done
Gerard put something on Facebook.
Yeah,
so Gerard's really good about that.
Yeah, I've seen it. People are blasting it, and like I said, come join our awesome community. Hubert21 is the code. 30 days for free. Basketball.
Jenna, Kevin, John.
Yeah, calling him out. Man, he's calling him out. Y'all gotta get to blasting it, and yeah, hopefully we'll add some more awesome members to our community. Looking forward to continue to grow that, and seeing where we can.
It's a great time for it.
Yeah, we got an awesome community over there at THI. So come join the THI family. Great time to do it. Hubert21, link description below. We'll see you guys in the next one. As always, though, real quick, make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as well, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.